These mudflats skirting the harbour estuary have their own importance. Here, hundreds of wading and migrating birds find food among the carpet of water plants. This rich haven for wildlife is now a major nature reserve.
I'm Barry Yates and I manage the nature reserve here at Rye Harbour, near the mouth of the River Rother, to the south of Rye. Here the nature reserve was established 30 years ago on land that is managed by the Environment Agency for sea defences. Here there's a lot of shingle and sand and sea and a lot of wildlife that's very specialised. You can explore this area along a network of footpaths and 4 birdwatching hides which give you a good view of the wildlife here. You can start your visit at the information centre where there's a variety of boards showing the wildlife that you can see. Some of the very special shingle wildlife includes the sea kale, the sea pea, the viper's bugloss, and the breeding birds are very special because they include some unusual species like little tern, oystercatcher and ring plover.
On the northern edge of the nature reserve, we find this isolated Martello Tower, one of 74 that were erected to protect the east and southeast coast from Napoleon. Rye has 2 museums. This is the entrance to one of them.
Rye Museum is now in 2 places within Rye. It's in its original place in Rye Castle, or the Wipers Tower, and the second venue is in East Street, now in an old brewery which has been converted into a wonderful new museum with the help of the lottery.
The second museum is the Ypres Tower, known to the locals as the Wipers Tower. It was the original museum and has itself played an important role in Rye's turbulent history. Built in 1249 by the Constable of the Cinque Ports, Peter of Savoy, it holds a prominent position on the landscape. This is the gun garden, once ringed by numerous cannon. A survey was made in 1587 by Sir Thomas Palmer and the Deputy Lieutenant of Sussex, Walter Covert, checking the defences of the Sussex coast, including Rye and Camber Castle, against foreign invasion. Once known as the Baddings Tower, it takes its present name from Jean de Ypres. He made it his home in 1430. The tower was one of only 4 buildings to survive the French attack of 1377, and for a while became the seat of government while the town rose round it like a phoenix from the ashes. In 1518 it took on another role, that of the town prison. The heavy oak doors, much weathered by age, tell their own grim story. Of damp, poorly lit cells and untold numbers of men and women suffering incarceration. In a glass display case is an owler's lamp used by smugglers. A later law was to separate the men from the women. The women were housed in this adjacent tower. This was their exercise yard, not so tidy in those days. Today, the tower is open to the public, who can see its ancient walls without discomfort. The gun gardens still display their ancient cannon, but offer gentler pleasures in the way of well-kept flower beds and the scent of pollen. This is the home of William Holloway, who wrote one of the first guides of the town in 1847. He went on to write more, delighting the readers of the South Eastern Advertiser with rambles around his adopted neighbourhood. Writing history, he said, was a never-failing source of comfort. What he wrote became the basis for future reference books on the town, for the details of his rambles were meticulously researched. A copy of his History and Antiquities of the Ancient Town of Rye was presented to the town council. The town clerk replied, "We are gratified in finding that the circumstance of Mr. Holloway having had free access to the records of the town has assisted him in compiling the work he has now presented us." Something of his local stature becomes apparent when virtually single-handedly he was allowed to name and number many of Rye's streets. In Antiquarian Rambles, Holloway spoke of Rye buildings, of the people who lived in them, of life in those and bygone days. "In all probability," he wrote, "in the course of years, some of these objects spoken of in these rambles will have crumbled away. I would gladly indulge the hope that these records may prove more valuable in perpetuating their memory when no longer in existence, and thus, now and then, perchance, in years to come, may remind future generations of their existence in days then long passed away." Holloway's Rye still exists and is there for everyone to see. He's left his mark, for what is a town without knowledge of its history? He had, he said, in the rather laborious prose of the time, led his readers through all the streets and alleys of the town and peeped into all its crooks and corners, having likewise gathered with my sickle and bound up many sheaves, yet such is the rich harvest field which our ancient town offers to the antiquary, that the patient gleaner may still pick up many a full ear of corn. And though I have often and earnestly examined and searched the records of the town of Rye, yet so abundant are these that a persevering antiquary may still find employment for his pen. But as far as I myself am concerned, I have laid down my sickle and my pen for the present, at all events, perhaps forever. He died on the 23rd of May 1870. One of the last people to be interred in the vaults of the church, he lies here with his wife Sarah and their son Marion. A brass plaque remembers him. A few miles outside Rye lies Rye Forum, a piece of land which remained a province of France even after Henry III returned Rye to English control in 1247. This strange creation is Cordbat Cottage, Cordbat being the old Sussex word for a pile of logs. The logs here are set end on. But Rye was most surely English when Elizabeth I came this way in 1573. She stopped just outside the town before being received into it, drinking water from this spring, which appropriately became known as Elizabeth's Well, and the town so delighted her eyes that she dubbed it Rye Royal. While she was here, she inspected her fleet anchored in the harbour, a fleet that was never to do battle with the Spanish. After the Armada was defeated, much of the British fleet was broken up, and according to local legend, the timbers were used in many of Rye's buildings, such as the 400-year-old George Hotel. The George Inn stands in Rye's High Street. This road is a veritable time capsule of old buildings. This stationer's shop, Adams of Rye, is on the corner of Conduit Hill. The old clock in the window was made in 1839 by Charles Loons, whose premises stood across the road. The art of designing and making watches and clocks goes back many centuries in Rye, and like many other local crafts, they gained a reputation for quality. On a nearby corner, this was once an 18th century apothecary's shop. And here we find Rye's old grammar school, founded by Thomas Peacock in 1636. The school appears in Thackeray's last and unfinished novel, Denis Duval. The old tuck shop in a nearby street attracted not just pupils from the school, but smugglers as well. There's a hoist wheel at the top of the chimney used to pull up kegs of contraband brandy. The building contains another gem from the past, this old baking oven. Visitors to Rye are numerous. Most are passing, but others come to stay, as did the Huguenots fleeing religious persecution in France. Over 1,500 came to live here in houses like this. Another visitor was John Wesley, writing in his diary of December 1773, "I set out for Rye and found abundance of people willing to hear the good word, at Rye in particular, and they do many things gladly, but they will not part with the accursed thing, smuggling. So I fear with regard to these, our labour will be in vain." The church where Wesley preached was destroyed by a German bomb in 1942. In its place, this new church, the brightest and lightest in Sussex, Wesley would presumably have approved. Rye attracts large numbers of artists and painters, responding to the unique inspiration the town offers. This is the Rope Walk Centre, an arcade that's become the home for many such artists.
Well, the reason my daughter and I have a pottery studio in Rye, really, more than anything else, is because it attracts people who are interested in art. Rye itself is a very picturesque and art-orientated place anyway. You look at the buildings and the people who come round, the art galleries. It is a very lovely town. I mean, the tourists love it. The Americans think it's quaint. And I don't know, it's just something about it. It gives you a good feeling. You can explore different art forms being here. I mean, person, excuse the fly, do coil work, which is a unique one-off piece. But any other artist, they can all explore their own theme, from oil paintings to watercolourists. I mean, you look at the scenery. It's an artist's paradise. It's relaxing, beautiful. I mean, that's not a bad thing I can really say about it.
Not for you.
Every year the town holds a festival, a time to celebrate. But there are other things hidden but not forgotten. In the town hall attic are these gibbet irons, complete with the skull of John Breeds, a local butcher. It's claimed that Breeds so hated the mayor, James Lamb, that he plotted his murder. His trial took place here, as the town hall was not yet built. On the night of the murder, Lamb's brother-in-law, Alan Greville, had borrowed the mayoral cloak and was mistakenly stabbed to death when he returned home through the churchyard. Witnesses said that Breeds had been heard to shout, "Butchers should kill lambs." Some to this day say that he was framed. He was taken down this lane and took his last drink at the Flushing Inn, and then to Gibbet Marsh, where in 1744, not far from this windmill, he was hanged.
You see Father Lamb go on? Yeah. Because in those days they called it the Rotten Borough of Rye.
Rotten Borough of Rye.
Because the actual elections were done by a very small group of people.
That's right.
Headed by the Lamb family.
Headed by the Lamb family.
Yeah.
I've got the horrible feeling if you upset the lambs, life could be pretty uncomfortable around here.
Well,
wouldn't
it could have been, yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, the Breeds are still here and the lambs have gone.
They're gone, have they?
Oh, yes.
The Lamb family has died out in Rye, but the Breeds remain.
The Breeds family are still here.
Breeds, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's good. That's your family.
He's up the other end on the board.
Oh, yes, it's just very interesting.
But him upstairs is still there, you see.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, what's left of it? 1740s.
The Saxon Shore Way cuts its way through Rye, following the line of the old military canal. It's a waterway controlled by sluice gates, since beyond this point the water at Strand Quay is tidal. Can you see the sea trout and mullet waiting the opportunity to make their way down to the sea? A short distance from Rye is this fortress, Camber Castle, built in 1539 by Henry VIII at a cost of £23,000 out of materials salvaged from dissolved monasteries. Its shape is that of the Tudor Rose, a tall central circular tower surrounded by 4 shorter ones. As the sea receded, so did the importance of the castle, until in 1626 Charles I ordered its demolition, which was never carried out. In the Second World War, it again had a military role, if brief and minor, as this gun emplacement testifies. In In the 1930s, it had stood in the middle of a golf course, but none of that remains. How did the people of Rye entertain themselves years ago? The answer might be found at the Rye Treasury, partly hidden off Cinqueport Street. Here we find a unique working collection of mechanical musical instruments dating back almost 200 years.
Welcome to the Rye Treasury. The Rye Treasury started in 1987. It's a partnership between two people who have always been interested in mechanical music, and it's a collection, basically my collection, with additions from friends. It shows the development of mechanical music from 1800 right up to the present day. There are various machines to see. We've got a violin player, we have polyphons, musical boxes, pianolas, dance organs, and we are open 7 days a week from 10 till 5, so please come along and see us. Yeah, I came into the business of mechanical music after seeing a pianola at a steam fair, which was being run by a little steam engine, and completely enthralled by it. And I was with my brother at the time. I said, I'd love to have one of those. At that time, I didn't have room. About 4 years after that, my brother phoned me and said, oh, there's a pianola in a shop in East Grinstead. So I rushed down there, it worked, and I bought it. And really, this collection now has started from just buying a pianola and really getting hooked on mechanical music in general.
And so we near the end of our exploration where land meets sea and where a small town lies on a distant hill. It is like no other town in England, declared that seasoned traveller and writer Arthur Mee. We pass through its great gate and feel that we're in the world which set the gateway up so many centuries ago. Rye seems out of place and out of time.